Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 6, Prahlad instructs his demoniac schoolmates, text number 15. Viteshu nitya binishya cheta vidams cha dosham paravita katru hartu pratyeha vapyap yaditendriyastad ashanta kamo karate kutumbi viteshu nitya biniveshitas cheta vidvamsatosham paravita hartu pratyeha vatap yajitendriyastad asanta kamo harate kutumbi viteshu nitya binivishta cheta vidam chadosham paravita hartu pradyeha vitapya jitendriyastad ashanta kamo harate kutumbi viteshu nitya binivishita cheta idam chadosham paravita hartu pradyeha vitapya jitendriyastad ashanta kamo harate kutumbi. Dhamma. Teshu nitya biniveshitas cheta vidam chadosham paravita hartu pratyeha vatyap yaditendriyastad ashanta kamo harate kutumbi. Viteshu, immaterial wealth, nitya abhinivishta cheta, whose mind is always absorbed. Vedvan, having learned. Cha, also. Dosham, the fault. Paravita hartu, one who steals the money of others by cheating or by transactions on the black market. Pretya, after dying. Iha, in this material world. Va, or atapi, still. Ajit Indriya, because of being unable to control the senses. Tat, that. Ashantakama, whose desires are unsatiated. Harati, steals. Kutumbi, too fond of his family. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. A person too attached to the duties of family maintenance is unable to control his senses. The core of his heart is immersed in how to accumulate money. Although he knows that one who takes the wealth of others will be punished by the law of the government and by the laws of Yamaraj after death, he continues cheating others to acquire money. Purport, especially in these days, people do not believe in a next life or in the court of Yamaraj and the various punishments of the sinful. But at least one should know that one who cheats others to acquire money will be punished by the laws of government. Nonetheless, people do not care about the laws of this life or those governing the next. Despite whatever knowledge one has, one cannot stop his sinful activities. He is unable to control his senses. Viteshu nitya vinivishta cheta vidvamsa dosham parat ita hartu pratyeha dvapyap ititendriyastad ashantakamo harate kutumbi. Person too attached to the duties of family maintenance is unable to control his senses. The core of his heart is immersed in how to accumulate money. Although he knows that one who takes the wealth of others will be punished by the law of the government and by the laws of Yamaraj after death, he continues cheating others to acquire money. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Vacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskyatyade Sadharane. In the sixth canto of the Bhagavatam, Parikshit Maharaj was inquiring from Shukadeva Goswami about how one can avoid going to hell, because at the end of the fifth canto, there's a description of all the different kinds of hell. And they're quite elaborate. And being a compassionate Vaishnava, Parikshit Maharaj was wondering how these people could be saved. He mentions that there's something called prayaschita, atonement, that after performing some sinful activity, that one can atone for it and possibly avoid the sinful reaction for his activity. But the problem is that unless the sinful desire is removed from the heart, that even after becoming purified of the reaction for the sinful activity, then still one will be forced to commit sinful activities again and again. As explained in the Nectar of Devotion, sinful activity has different stages. And it's all based upon avidya. Because we don't know who we are, we think ourselves to be something we're not. So that's called avidya. And being identified with something we're not, therefore we identify our purpose of life, our service, because everyone eternally is engaged in some kind of service. Either we serve Krishna or we're forced to serve our senses. Servants we have to be. When we think we're this body, then naturally we want to serve the senses. When we think that this body is the object of our service, then that's what we desire. And the result of such desires is called papam, sinful desire. Now, desires don't stop at papam, they also manifest themselves as activities. And there's two kinds of activities. One is called parabdha karma and the other is called aparabdha karma. If you want to see what your parabdha karma looks like, your manifested sinful activities, we just have to look in the mirror. And there's our glorious sinful reactions, all our sinful activities looking at us in the mirror. Because nowadays they say, love your sinful activities. And our parabdha karma is those activities which are stored in the core of our heart that haven't manifested themselves grossly yet, but are just waiting for the opportunity. Now, if one is identified with the body further and accepts this body as oneself, then one will be forced to act according to one's parabdha karma. That will manifest itself as sinful activities. Now, after performing the sinful activities, it doesn't stop there. It's not that I perform sinful activities and now I'm satisfied and there's no desire to perform any more sinful activities. No, they then manifest themselves as kuta, subtle sinful desires that will produce sinful activities in the future. They're stored as a tendency or propensity towards sinful activities. And sometime or another, they'll manifest. Just like a child, when they're old enough, they may exhibit some tendency to steal because of their past proclivity to steal. Now it's going to be manifested as a tendency towards stealing because of their past activities in stealing. And when the time comes and the situation is favorable, then it manifests in different varieties of theft. And that's called papam. That desires for stealing, there was a proclivity towards stealing, but now there is a desire to steal, and that manifests itself as stealing. Prarabdha karma. And that's further stored as aparabdha karma, future reactions, and as a tendency to steal more. And that goes on and on and on until one's life is dedicated to stealing. And it's all based upon avidya. Now, one may one may try to give up the sinful desire, but sinful desires will come anyhow due to ignorance. Some sinful desires will be. As long as we identify ourselves as servants of this body, then that's all sinful. And we'll have to serve some kind of sinful desire in the future. And serving that sinful desire, we'll get reactions for it, prarabdha and aparabdha karma, which will manifest itself as a tendency towards sinful activities, which will manifest themselves in the future as sinful desires, and then sinful activities will manifest again. And the cycle goes on again and again. Now everyone in the material world is trapped. Now there's some persons telling us we shouldn't perform that kind of sinful activity in the mode of ignorance. We should perform sinful activity in the mode of passion. That's good. Or some say, no, give up all these sinful activities and be good. Be sinful in the mode of goodness. Don't be sinful on the gross platform. Be sinful on the intellectual platform. Imagine yourself to be the do-gooder, the savior of others. But that's also false ego. It's also putting us in illusion, in a material body, in bodily identification, and therefore suffering old age, disease, and death again and again, even though we may be nice people. Therefore, the only way of actually quitting the cycle of revolving through goodness, passion, ignorance, going up and down in 8,400,000 species of life, is to remove the avidya, the ignorance. And avidya manifests itself, first of all, as false ego. That we don't know who we are, but we think ourselves to be something we're not. That's called asmita. So the same cycle is explained as avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, and abhiniveshita. So asmita, the false ego, can only be removed when we get knowledge. And what is that knowledge? That krishnera srupahoy, jivera srupahoy, krishnera nityadas. That we're actually servants of the servants of the servants of Krishna. Gopi bharata kamalayor dasa danasa anudasa. And whatever service we do under the direction of Krishna and his representatives, in that mood of being the servant of the servants of Krishna, that will gradually free us from our false ego. It's a question of practice. The more we act as a servant of the servant of Krishna in that consciousness, then the more we forget our false ego. The more our false ego is erased by Krishna. It's a question of what we want to be. Whether we want to be an illusion, and then Krishna supplies us with illusion, and we want to be in Krishna consciousness, we voluntarily accept service to Krishna through Guru, Sadhana, and Shastra, then Krishna gradually takes away our false ego and gives us a realization of himself, and our real identification is the servant of the servant of the servants of Krishna. But generally speaking, as it says here, people in the material world, they don't believe that there's a God. They don't believe in sinful activity. They don't believe in karma. They only believe that the purpose of life, Chintyam aparayam cha pralayantam apashitya kama papoga paramam etavam iti nischita asha pashishutera kama kroda parayana ihanti kama bhogartan aniyenartha sanjaya. They believe that to gratify the senses unto the end of life is a prime necessity of human civilization, and therefore there can be no measurement for their anxiety. Being bound by hundreds and thousands of desires, by lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense enjoyment. So this is the philosophy of modern so-called civilization. When Gandhi went to England, they asked him, "What do you think of English civilization?" And his reply, as we've heard, was, he said it would be a good idea. So we're not living in a civilized society, we're living in an animalistic-like society, simply trying to gratify the senses unto the end of life. And what's the root cause? Well, that's why Krishna begins the 16th chapter by saying there's two kinds of people. There's the divine and the demoniac. And how do we differentiate them? Pravitim cha navritim cha, jana na vidur asara, nisocham napi chapchare, nisatyam chap, pravitim cha navritim cha, pravitim cha navritim cha, karya bhayavaye, moksham, that's right. Pravitim cha navritim cha, jana na vidur asara, nisatyam napi chacharo, nisocham napi chacharo, nisocham napi chacharo, nisatyam cha navidyate. So, once again, we'll repeat it. Pravitim cha navritim cha, jana navido asara, nisocham napi chacharo, nisatyam teshu vidyate. The demoniac don't know what's to be done and what's not to be done. Neither cleanliness, nor proper behavior, nor truthfulness is found in them. So here we find two of the most significant aspects of the mode of goodness, namely satyam and socham. And everything else comes in the category of apichachare, proper behavior. If we're not clean, if we're not truthful, then we can't accept ourselves as the servant of Krishna, and therefore we'll be unclean, we'll simply be aspiring for sense gratification, and our behavior will send us to the darkest regions of existence. But what is all this based upon? What is the underlying principle? Asatyam apratishtamte jagarahora nishwaram aprashparam sambhutyam kemanyat kamahaitukam. They say that this world is unreal, it has no foundation, it has no God in control, it is produced of sex desire, and has no cause other than lust. In other words, here is a choice. Either we could at least theoretically accept Krishna as God and try to work according to his principles to the best we can, and then understand how things are being arranged by Krishna and what we're supposed to do in that arrangement. Then gradually our desire to enjoy the material energy will diminish. But if we don't do that, then etam dristim avashtavya nashtatmano nabudaya pravanya yugra karmana shaye jagato hita. Then we'll join the ranks of the people who are trying to destroy the world. Etam drishtim avashtavya, as it says here in the same verse we've just read, being etam drishtim avashtavya, having lost their intelligence, lost their vision actually, etam drishtim nastatmano nabuddhya, and having lost their intelligence, they engage in horrible and beneficial works which are meant to destroy the world. So the result of rejecting God, of not trying to find one's place in God's order, either through varnashram or through the instructions of higher authorities, spiritual authorities, then the result is that we'll simply cultivate lust, then greed, then anger in their sequence, and illusion will overwhelm us, and forgetfulness and bewilderment of memory and intelligence will be lost. So we can go on like that, but we'll simply make problems for ourselves and everyone else. That's the result. All in the false promise of progress. So much is mine today and I'll gain more in the future. So much wealth do I have and I'll get more and more. He is my enemy and I've killed him. My other enemies will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am surrounded by rich and aristocratic relatives. There's no one so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform some sacrifice. I shall give some charity. In this I shall rejoice. In this way the demoniac are bewildered by ignorance. So that will follow. That will be people's motto. They may pretend that they're nice people. They may pretend that they have a nice family, that everything's going well, but their life is simply a mess. Being afflicted by lust, anger, and greed, they're simply always in anxiety and in confusion without any real understanding how to make real progress in life, even progress towards the mode of goodness. They simply sink down to the most abominable type of existence. Tanaham dvishatam kuram, samsaresham naradamam, Shri Pram Ashtrasram Ashubam Asrishveva Yonishu. Asuram Yoni Janmisu. Asuram Yoni Janmane. Asuram Yoni Janmisu. Being put into this asuric, demoniac species of life, they gradually sink down to the most abominable existence. Asram yoni apanam, Buddha janmani, mama prapya vikundya, tato yadamam gatim. So this is not what Krishna wants. Krishna is coming to give knowledge so we can stop our sinful desires, stop our sinful activities, stop our tendency to sinful reactions or sinful activities. That's what Krishna wants by trying to convince us that we're the servants of Krishna. Otherwise, then our existence in the material world is very dangerous. We don't know where we're going. We don't know how, even when we go there, we don't know how long we're going to be there. We don't know if we're going to go further up or further down. All this is due to the fact that we don't know things as they really are. But neha bikarmana shosi pratyavayona vidyate swapamapya siddharmasya trayate mahatobaya. On this path, there's no loss or diminution, and even a little advancement can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So if we can give people this little bit of knowledge that they're eternal souls and that they're servants of Krishna, then their life can go from very inauspicious to quite auspicious. They can make progress towards the actual goal of life and understand not only how to act in the material world with others, but even to act within their family and not try to simply create a sensuous life of material happiness, but try to create a spiritual life of spiritual happiness. So I'll stop there. Any questions, comments? Any questions? That's my question. Okay, we won't torch you anymore. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.